He is the worst serial killer in Russia's history.
He just liked to kill.
His eyes are very unpleasant. He has the look of a cornered predator.
For years, he kept a city in fear. For years, he taunted the police.
We just wanted to catch him, to stop people being killed.
He preyed on the lonely and vulnerable.
He operated very, very carefully.
And he kept a unique record of his crimes. Based on unprecedented access to Moscow's elite murder squad and unique police footage of a disturbing reenacted confession. This is the untold story of the hunt for Russia's most prolific serial killer. Moscow has experienced extraordinary changes since the dark days of the Cold War. Today, it's a place of fabulous wealth and grinding poverty. Of postcard cathedrals and tough housing estates. And it's also the backdrop for the most notorious serial killer in Russian history. Bitsa Park is an extensive wooded area covering 22 square kilometers of southern Moscow. It's a popular spot where ordinary Russians play chess or just enjoy a pleasant stroll. But for years, it hid a grisly secret. On Saturday, October the 15th, 2005, Moscow police find the dead body of 31-year-old Nikolai Worobyev. He suffered terrible injuries to the head. Denis Adamenko was one of the first policemen on the scene.
It was here, exactly at this place, where we found one of the victims. Of course, when we found him, it wasn't a pleasant sight. He had numerous brain injuries. A bottle was stuck into the head and the brain was strewn all over the ground nearby.
A month later, another body turns up, that of 63-year-old Nikolai Zakhachenko. Almost 2 weeks later, another, Vladimir Dedukin, and a week later, another, Nikolai Koryagin. By Christmas, 7 bodies have been found murdered and mutilated in Bitsa Park. Not one of the bodies has been concealed, and none of the victims has been robbed, but all of them have the same horrific trademark injury, a vodka bottle or stick forced into the bloody, gaping wound at the back of the head.
It was obvious from the beginning. It was a serial killer.
Complex homicide investigations are handled by Moscow's elite murder squad. And their most senior and experienced investigator is Andrei Supranenko. Often clashing with Moscow's criminal underworld and handling the city's most violent murders, he's used to dealing with complex and dangerous cases, the kind that cost his predecessor his life.
I took this criminal case for investigation in February 2006, when it became clear that we were dealing with a serial killer.
With 7 bodies discovered by police and a serial killer on the loose, Moscow becomes a city in fear. Investigative journalist Yana Zhalkinskaya is immediately drawn to the case and begins to cover the story for the Russian and British press.
We realized that it's a serial killer, it's a maniac operating in Bitsa Park. We called him Bitsa Maniac. People were frightened, and Bitsa Park is a very popular place for recreation, but the people were scared to go there because there was a feeling of danger.
Despite discovering so many bodies, police have few clues to the identity of the Bitsa maniac.
Убийца не оставлял ни одного следа.
The killer didn't leave any trace. We tried to pick up different objects from the crime scene, but our analysis didn't show any trace. No fingerprints, nothing. He operated very, very carefully.
Очень грамотно работал.
The investigators need all the help they can get. They turn to the one man who can assist them. Professor Vladimir Vorontsov is one of Moscow's most senior and experienced forensic examiners. He's been inspecting murder victims in the Russian capital for nearly 40 years. It falls to him to determine the exact nature of the victims' gruesome deaths.
All the injuries were inflicted in the head area, and there were very many of them. The most massive injuries would be made on the back and side of the head and on the face. It was like a calling card for this criminal, his signature.
These are the skulls of some of the victims found in Bitsa Park, and they have suffered massive injuries. Although the forensic evidence is very limited, Professor Vorontsov is still able to determine the likely murder weapon.
This fracture was made by an object with an angled edge. It could have been a hammer.
But just who is the killer wielding the hammer in Bitsa Park? Within weeks, there's a sensational development which promises to unlock the whole mystery.
Девушка, остановитесь!
By January 2006, Moscow police have 7 unsolved murders on their hands, all battered with a hammer in Bitsa Park in southern Moscow. All with the same telltale injury, the neck of a vodka bottle embedded in the gaping wound at the back of the head. And for senior investigator Andrei Supranenko, there's virtually no evidence to go on.
Whether the killer was a man, a woman or child, nobody knew anything. Whether he lived in the area or used to live there, whether he knew the park well, nobody knew anything.
With little concrete information to go on, rumors and theories abound. But one place close by attracts the special attention of the investigators. Could the killer be right under their noses?
There is a psychiatric sanatorium on the edge of Bitsa Park. Some of the stable patients would be allowed to go for a walk to Bitsa Park. They would have a day release. And there was this theory that the killer could be the patient of this sanatorium who escaped and was hiding in Bitsa Park and killing people.
A considerable number of people were checked. Anyone who was a bit suspicious was stopped and questioned by police.
But without a prime suspect, the psychiatric patient theory goes nowhere. But then there was another more compelling line of inquiry.
The victims were mainly men and middle-aged. They were really people nobody cared about and nobody would be looking for.
We thought, since it was only men who were the victims from the very beginning, that it might be a woman.
No one knew the real motives to the crimes. We were looking at various possibilities.
200 Moscow police stake out Bitsa Park. Their task is to stop and question anybody suspicious. But the park is vast. Covering an area of 22 square kilometers, their chances of catching the killer red-handed are remote.
Девушка, остановитесь!